Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to week 8.
Welcome to week 8 to The Voice, the art of storytelling and content creation.
Yes, Andres here,
And Cheyenne here.
and we're going to dive into this. And I just want to tell you a quick story. Funny because it's all going to be about stories. So this is kind of the intro story of how I discover storytelling. So, back in about 2017 or so, we dove deeper into the whole the heroes to journeys, right? I remember I bought a book, and I've been hearing about how like storytelling was the key, to really cultivate your audience, to really engage people. And I sort of understood some things because I've been reading a lot of like Jesus' parables and Jesus' stories, which we're going to show you a really cool example of one within this context. But for me, it was a big awakening, big realization that even though Jesus knew so much, and he knew like the whole law, he obviously was like super well versed with the word. So many times he just pull out verses like that he always chose to communicate in the form of stories.
Right.
No matter if he was talking to very educated people or uneducated people, poor or rich, like no matter, it did not matter. People are people, and storytelling, telling stories, it's really the foundation to our communication.
Exactly. Yep. I saw a very similar phenomenon even with teaching. And I remember when I was in teachers college, one of my mentors told me that if you want to get the attention of the class, if they're being exceptionally, rowdy that day, or they're just not paying attention, that the one thing every child will listen to, no matter what, is a story. And it was always true. Whenever I would talk about my own experiences, something that happened, at home or with you, my husband, my childhood, they were always extremely interested to hear, no matter how small it might have been to me. And it just proved that no matter what age we are, storytelling really grabs people's attention.
Always.
And often their hearts are able to say a lot, sometimes with very little in a short story.
Exactly. And one of the things I learned too about Sam Ovens, if you guys know him, he's one of the, big giants in the marketing game, etc. With over 20 million, $30 million a year he's making right now. And he said there's two ways to make a point. Number one, you can make a point with by truth, like just going all the way to like the base of like that argument, or you can illustrate it with an analogy, right? So you either go all the way to the logic, like to the root of the problem or the topic you're talking about, and you bring it back to like an anchor, a truth, in the logical kind of like left brain, or right brain, which is more with illustrating it, saying like, hey, this is like a sunny day, this is like, and so by just doing something that is very common to people.
And he's really good at that. He does that throughout his whole courses through the weekend there. He's very good at drawing analogies and metaphors, and it does solidify it. It makes it very memorable.
Exactly.
Something I think I need to work on too.
Yeah, no, I think this is a skill that's obviously very useful for anything in life, because it's so much easier to tell stories, to make a point, rather than try to like teach you and break it down and tell you all this reasoning and all these facts and all this data. You like one simple story that just hits the nail on the head could be the difference.
Exactly. So as you can tell, because we just rambled on for quite a while, we're very excited about this lesson.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like it's definitely changed our lives in a big way and how we communicate with our audience. So we're really excited to teach it to you today. So then the main objective of this lesson is I understand how to use storytelling within my content strategy to influence, persuade, and transform the life of my ideal avatar. And the key topics that we're going to cover today, there's 7. Number 1 is the power of storytelling. Number 2, the stories we tell ourselves. Number 3, the hero's journey. Number 4, story brand. Number 5, Epiphany bridge stories. Number 6, the 3 traffic temperatures. And number 7, the 12 psychological triggers. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the power of storytelling.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty, so the power of storytelling. So I want to take a look, first of all, at the definition of storytelling. Storytelling is an ancient art form that reveals a narrative, either true or fictitious, designed to interest, amuse, or instruct the hearer or reader. Keyword, that instructing, amusing, interest. Stories can be the key to gaining someone's attention, like you were saying with your kids, with the classroom, but it can also be a way to communicate out just a very powerful lesson and translate that attention all the way to a core principle that literally changes people's lives.
Right. And sometimes they're all intermingled, which is probably even the best way.
Right.
You entertain them and you teach them something simultaneously. And so very quick, we want to just give a brief history of storytelling. So throughout history, every culture has developed its own stories or narratives, which are shared as a means of entertainment, education, cultural preservation, or instilling moral values. And so some traditional forms of storytelling are fairy tales, folk tales, mythology, legends, fables, etc. And so as you're hearing that, you probably even come up with, some fairy tales or folk tales or fables that you have learned throughout your life, presumably many of them from childhood, or maybe, specific stories from your culture. And right, so below here, we just kind of incorporated some that are kind of more commonly well known. So Aesop's fables, these were written thousands of years ago by a storyteller from ancient Greece. These fables, which all entail obviously animals, they all have a moral lesson to be taught. And some of the popular ones that we know are, the hare and the tortoise, or the ant and the grasshopper. And so these are extremely common stories still today. They are timeless, right? And so that's a prime example, all the way from back ancient Greece, and they're still real relevant today, the stories that they tell. Another one here that we have is the Ballad of Mulan. And something that I didn't actually know until I had a student in my first year of teaching who was from China. We were talking about stories actually about different Disney movies, and she told me that Mulan is actually a character that many, many people in China actually are very, very well aware of. Whether she's fictitious or real, I think that's still kind of, debated over. But nonetheless, this Chinese warrior woman was like, this tale is extremely popular in their culture and something that many, many people know over there. Whereas I think today, that movie, when Disney kind of adopted the story, it came out in 1998. And most people, in Western world were not really aware of that. The next one, obviously being Snow White. Again, it is a very common fairy tale from Germany, and nonetheless, it does have a very, deep meaning of where true beauty lies, right? Not just in the exterior, but on the interior. And so I'm sure you can think of your own from your own cultural background from childhood that are still very relevant.
Stories that have impacted your life in any way.
Exactly.
So why is it so valuable to master storytelling? In essence, here are the two main points, the two main reasons. One, stories are the key to influencing your audience successfully. And number two, stories produce belief in whatever you communicate. If you recall one of the earlier lessons when we talked about message, positioning, it was very heavy on belief, because when we really communicate well, and doesn't matter if it's a stranger, a customer, a lead, there are certain beliefs, right? We talked about the logic train or the belief train, that certain beliefs that they need to have in order to buy. So stories are the ones that bridge the gap between like where they are and where you need them to be. So what are the basic elements of a story? I just want to give you a little bit of background here. So first of all, knowing what the plot is can just simplify things. Sometimes, and as we dive deeper into this lesson, there's so many details, but you can always go back to this slide and realize that no matter the story, no matter, what, it starts with the three elements of the basic plot structure: character, desire, and conflict. And I put here the story of Lion King. Simba is the main character.
The best movie of all time.
Shout out
just
to yeah, she loves him.
Just to put it out there.
Yeah. The desire, obviously, he wants to be king, wants to be, he's his own and have a certain level of influence and power. And conflict, of course, Scar wants to kill. Right. So this is just in essence, and you can tell that story with anything, like even Little Red Riding Hood, like character, her. Desire wants to go take cookies to the grandma, right? Conflict, the wolf.
Big bad wolf.
Right. And so there's 7 types of conflict, types of plot, sorry. Man against man. But yeah, conflict. Man against nature, tornado and, or Sharknado and any of those that are like against nature. Yeah, man against himself, any psychological deep within issues. man against God, of course, man against society as a whole, man caught in the middle, and man and woman, man against woman, woman, and any of those kind of combinations. So here are some common storylines. Number one, loss and redemption. This is the classic, like, hey, I had everything together, then X happened, I lost it, but then at the end, I gained even more. And so the book of Job is a great example of someone that had everything and then lost it, and then gained it back with even more favor. Loss and redemption story. Us versus them. Very, very easy. Great to polarize your audience. True artists versus fake wannabes. Or, the doers versus the talkers, or anything that polarizes. That's like us versus them, teams. Before and after, of course, great for transformation or rags to riches. Weight loss, or Jared from Subway, if you know his story from the restaurant Subway. Great before and after. 4, amazing discovery. Hey, you won't believe this amazing thing I discovered, right? And you can just think of any of your favorite movies where some sort of treasure is found, some sort of new discovery, scientific thing that changes everything, and the whole movie is based around this discovery. Mm-hmm. Right? Number 5, secret telling. I have a secret, but you must do blank to find out. Any type of riddles, any type of like treasure hunt, before they even find it. It's all about that secret, and everything can be based, the narrative can be based around secret telling. And of course, you got the third person testimonials where people share other people's success, and interviews, any kind of things where a third person is talking about the matter. All right. And so I cannot think of a better example than this parable that Jesus said here in Luke 8 to illustrate this. So if you can read it for us.
Right. And so it's not very long. So we're actually going to give you the example on the spot. Okay, so it says, and when a great crowd was gathering and people from town, after he said in the parable, a sower went out to sow his seed. And as he sowed, some fell along the path and was trampled underfoot, and the birds of the air devoured it. And some fell on the rock, and as it grew up, it withered away, because it had no moisture. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up with it and choked it. And some fell into good soil and grew and yielded 100-fold. As he said these things, he called out, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." And when his disciples asked him what this parable meant, he said, "To you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom of God, but for others they are in parables, so that seeing they may not see, and hearing they may not understand. Now the parable is this: the seed is the word of God. The ones along the path are those who have heard. Then the devil comes and takes away the word from their hearts, so that they may not believe and be saved. And the ones on the rock are those who, when they hear the word, receive it with joy. But these have no root. They believe for a while, and in time of testing fall away. And as for what fell among the thorns, they are those who hear, but as they go on their way, they are choked by the cares and riches of pleasures of life, and their fruit does not mature. As for that in the good soil, they are those, hearing the word, hold it fast in an honest and good heart, and bear fruit with patience."
Mm-hmm. There you go. So later on, the disciples obviously come and ask Jesus about what the meaning of it, which I kind of outline here. And there's even more, so invite you to read it, of course. So storytelling is the master key to communication. That's something we can take from the best communicator on earth, which was Jesus, and that parable literally has changed the lives of many people, the lives of the disciples, and we even read it till today, 2,000 plus years. So let's talk about the stories we tell ourselves, because in reality, as we said, since we all communicate with stories, what about the stories that you tell yourself?
Okay, and so the reality is that we're always telling ourselves stories. So from the day we're born, we've been told stories by our families, friends, community, culture, and society. And I'm sure as I say that, you can probably even think of many different things that you've received, whether it's beliefs, values that you've gotten from your family, your culture, the greater country, the society that you live in. And oftentimes, whether we realize it or not, those stories become our stories, either for better or worse. So these stories shape our personal identity and worldview, and in turn, who we believe we are and what we believe is possible. And so, as an example, interesting enough, we were chatting yesterday with someone, who is in the midst of starting his own business with his wife, actually, as well. And he just came back from this, big event in the online business world. And he actually invested in one of these very high ticket programs because he feels like, this is what we need. We need to get to that next step. And it takes a lot of courage to be able to put money on the line when he doesn't have that much.
Right.
But really admirable because they're very dedicated. It showed, how much they believe this is possible.
No, it's 25 grand, so it wasn't an easy.
Right. Nonetheless, though, he also told us that when he came back, his father, he told about, was not happy about it at all. He was very hard on him. He, told him how ridiculous he thought it was, and, how essentially it seemed like he was saying he was very immature or irresponsible because they're obviously not doing very well financially at the moment, and that kind of move was, not a responsible thing to do for his family. His dad comes from more, much more traditional background.
It's a different story.
Right. So he was raised with, different beliefs, and it was a very clear contrast of the stories that both him and his father are telling himself, right? Obviously, the one we spoke to, he's telling a story that, this is what I need to gain success, and it's possible for me to gain financial stability from this, to provide for my family, to live the life I dream of with my wife and my daughter. Whereas his father was telling a completely different story, that this is going to end up in failure. The only way to success is to go, get your PhD and get a good 9 to 5. And, that was a very big example yesterday of, you can't please everyone because we're all telling our own stories. And so it's very good to be aware of what story you're telling yourself and that you truly believe it, and that's it. It's empowering you.
Yeah, and it's crazy because this program that this guy bought actually has access to this other 35 or something. I think there's been in total like 38 millionaires that have made it exactly using, this strategies. And so, every single one of these people did not come from a background, that you would expect because it's so new, digital marketing, etc. And so, it just proves to show every single one of these people told themselves a different story, that it was possible, even just to go ahead and achieve it. And now they're on the other side coaching others, similar to how we are coaching ourselves. So it all really depends on the story that you tell yourself. Dan McAdams, he's a really big name in the Northwestern University of Psychology. And he talked about the narrative identity that we all tell ourselves. And this is what he said. I thought it was really interesting. He said, like myths, stories, and fables, our narrative identity contains heroes and villains that help us or hold us back, major events that determine the plot, challenges overcome, and sufferings we have to endure. When we want people to understand us, we share our story or parts of it with them. When we want to know who another person is, we ask them to share part of their story. So stories are so ingrained in us, and we are a living story in a way. Mm-hmm. And there's really only 2 types of stories that we tell ourselves and others. Either they're empowering with a positive meaning, or they're disempowering. And this all will depend on the definition that you give it. And we talked about this in, I think, like week 1 or week 2, when it came all about like the brain waves and the neural pathways that, our brain makes and associates. Because, let's face it, 2 twins literally can go through the same exact divorce situation. One falls into a horrible depression and, it's in a horrible pit for the rest of their life. The other one rises up and, turns everything around and becomes really successful and builds shelters all around the world.
Absolutely.
What's the difference?
It's all a matter of perspective.
The stories.
What are you focusing on?
Mm-hmm. And what you focus on. And this is basically the cycle that not only you follow, I follow, but your customers, your audience follow as well. So there's stories that you hear and believe, either from your family, from the government, from the media, that influence your worldview, the way that you see the world. Then this, of course, determines the stories that you spread and reinforce the stories that you hear and believe. And so this cycle, we're all in this type of cycle. And if we're not aware or conscious of our own stories that we tell ourselves, we could be in cycles that are really destructive for us, that are, basically reinforcing our worldview and spreading more stories on something that is not empowering or that it won't really lead to any good. So in reality, the reason why stories are created and how stories are created are based on what I call peaks and valleys, right? And I took that concept kind of from the Bible because, it talks about how even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and also Zion and the holy hill and the mountain, right? So we always see these really high places and these low places. And of course, if I ask you what you had for breakfast a week ago, most likely you won't remember unless it was a horrible experience or an amazing experience, right? Because there's a lot of things that our minds just block out through the single normality of each day. But of course, if something crazy happens, you get into a crash accident, God forbid, or someone comes to your door and like visits you by surprise, you'll remember. Then you'll have a story because that peak or valley was created. So always look for those throughout your customers' life, throughout your own life. And we're going to go into a really cool exercise after that has helped us, that we learned from some of our mentors, into how to do this in just a second.
Exactly. And so the moral basically here is that when you change your story, you will definitely change your life as well, right? The stories we tell ourselves about ourselves determine the quality of the selves we imagine we are. The stories we tell about others also determine the quality of our relationships with them. And this can obviously and should include the clients that you hope to serve. So when we change the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and others, we not only change our own quality of life, but the world as well. And again, we cannot say how true this is enough because, again, we've obviously come from very different backgrounds that, necessarily weren't in online business, that I was a teacher. So the story that I was telling myself for a very long time, even though I always had it in my heart to contribute in some way, was that there was no way that I could be a business owner. Right? There was no way that I could be in that position. And all that really was it wasn't even that someone had necessarily told me that. It was just from the environment that I grew up in, from the people in my community, in my family, who no one else had their own business. It was just assumed that I was an employee, right? And that was something that wasn't even said necessarily overtly by someone. It was covertly, but nonetheless shaped the worldview that I have and the view of myself. And so once you start to become conscious of the stories you tell yourself, when you change them, you will also change your life and many other lives in the process.
Yeah, because your beliefs are the ones that are already ingrained within you, that filter all the information that comes, in your day to day. And those beliefs were made because of stories. We were reading recently with my wife the book of Deuteronomy in the Bible, and Moses is literally just like storytelling, like what happened, in just previous years in the wilderness, what happened in Egypt, what happened right? And he was just telling the people of Israel these stories. Literally, it's all there was, but just so that they would not forget the goodness of God, that they would not forget the hand of God within them. Because again, like now we have technology and we can archive things and take pictures and all these amazing things. But back then, like it was just a story that would just pass on. And then the dad will tell the kid, and then the kid will tell their kids, and it would just pass on. That, let's say, telling them what happened in Egypt.
Through oral words before writing was even.
Exactly. So that's why stories are so powerful. When they would say, hey, the people of Egypt were trying to kill us, and we fled, and then the Red Sea opened in like right in the middle, it parted. Like those are powerful stories that remain and encourage people because they realize like God is with us, even when years and years and years later people were doubting again and again and again. They would have to remind themselves of the story. So there's some good stories that you can tell yourself, that you can remind yourself of things that God has done in your life, etc. And there's also bad stories that the enemy as well tries to plant on you, that you're not good enough, and that you tell yourself sometimes unconsciously. So I invite you to ask yourself today, which story are you really telling yourself today?
Yeah.
And just like we see on this image.
Yeah, because whether you're the one at the bottom, the one that says, I won't do it, I can't do it, or you're the one at the top that says, I will do it, yes, I did it. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. Right? You're right either way.
That's crazy.
And so it's just a matter of what do you truly believe is possible.
I love that. I didn't know you were going to say that. I was saying like, oof. That was
drop
really...
mic.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because whatever the story you tell yourself becomes a reality in your life. That's why stories are so powerful. And, you can determine where you are here on the ladder depending on what story you tell yourself. And again, doesn't mean you need to feel this story sometimes. Sometimes we don't feel it. Right. And sometimes we look for those feelings first.
In the beginning, you're not going to feel it.
You're probably not going to feel it.
You're going to tell yourself you're a fraud. We've gone over that voice in your head that's going to tell you that you're a phony and you're a fake. It takes a lot of discernment to know, when you need to tell it to be quiet. Mm-hmm. And then, over time, you will start to believe it because it is true.
Exactly.
All right, and now we're going to get into the hero's 2 journeys. And that's, it kind of could look like us.
Could.
A little bit more muscular, I think, than I am. But So the hero's journey. Every major movie, play, or book follows this master structure that we're going to get into here. And the reason I said the hero's 2 journeys is because it is one journey, but there is an external journey simultaneously happening, as well as an internal journey that happens inside of our minds and our emotions, right? And so these 12 elements have been proven to work in telling powerful stories that evoke strong emotion and command undivided attention when done right.
Yeah, and I just want to say quickly before we dive into the section, if you want to learn more about this, you can search for the hero's journey or the hero's 2 journey. And Joseph Campbell was one of the ones that popularized this specific element. Sometimes the elements vary from like 8 to 12 to 17, depending, on the amount of detail. But I found this to be really, really cool and easy to follow because, again, here's the thing, and this is why it's relevant to you as it relates to building a business, because you are going to be literally influencing and hacking, people's attentions and beliefs and influencing their story at the same time that your own story is being written, your own story is being kind of shared with your audience. So you can find how they intersect, how they can connect and relate to each other using this framework. Then it's going to be so much easier for you to create amazing, amazing content that resonates with people. All right, so let's take a look. I want to call your attention to that first block, Ordinary World, right in the middle, and we're going to go to the left. It's called Act of Separation. That's the first part, and so we have to understand that no matter what movie or book or whatever, it always starts with, the ordinary world. Sometimes they do the, ending at the beginning, or they start in the middle somewhere and then they go back, but nonetheless, they have to present the ordinary world and then transition into this special world. So first, the call to adventure, okay, number 1, right here. And something happens to our character. Usually there's a refusal of the call. They don't feel worthy. They don't feel they can do it. There's, feeling of inadequacy like we were talking about.
Yeah, they're the reluctant hero.
Yes.
Right? Like, why me?
Why me? Yeah, why should I do it? Or am I even really made for this, etc. Mm-hmm. Then you meet the mentor. Usually, some sort of person that's ahead of you that has walked the journey, that is like carrying you or giving you some instructions, which gives you the power to now cross the threshold, the point of no return. Then from there, we go into the test allies and enemies. And don't worry, we're going to dive into an awesome example of Lord of the Rings to illustrate each of these ones. But I just want to get a really good diagram here for you, because you can literally put this filter through any movie you watch. Like put this through any of your favorite movies and you'll see that they follow this structure as well. Test allies and enemies. Then they approach the Inmost cave. This is, almost leading to the climax of the story, the greatest danger, which leads to the ordeal. You can see this guy's like, about to be crushed by this rock or something here. And we go into the reward. Okay, they endure this battle or this, horrible thing. They come out to the other side with or without losses, depends on, with or without being hurt. Of course, there's always dangers along the way. And then the road back, right? Like it's not over till it's over, right? Now they have to go back to the ordinary world, to their people that are waiting for them in some way or another. And then the resurrection. Okay, this is when it becomes a new self. You've come a long way. The old self has died. A new you has shined and has risen like the phoenix. And of course, you have now an elixir, a power, a moral, a lesson, a story, wisdom, etc. that now you take back to the ordinary world, and now you're never the same again. All right, and so that's the external one. But this is what happens with the inner journey, okay? And I don't know why this one's like backwards, but anyways, now we're gonna go to the right here. But maybe that's a way that you can see it: left to the external, right to the internal, who knows? But I'm just gonna read them quickly for you. Number 1, limited awareness of the problem. Number 2, increased awareness of need for change. Fear, resistance to change, right? That's the refusal right there. And then overcoming that fear. 5, committing to change, boom, crossing that threshold, right? 6, experimenting with new conditions.
I mean, this is quite literally, if you're going through this program, you've probably just dealt with all of those, right? Because we've gone through that too. You're literally, you committed to a change, and now you're experimenting with new conditions.
Yeah.
You're beginning that new journey.
Sometimes we're like, oh man, I think I'm there on the whole commitment to change and experimenting with new conditions, but nope, we're just about to go into even deeper, right? To actually make this happen. Preparing for major change, big change, and a feeling of life and death right in the middle. Number 9, accepting the consequence of the new life. Also some refusal, mixed feelings, new challenge, and rededication, right? This is like, okay, back to the ordinary world. That's exactly. And then final attempt, last minute dangers, whatever last things, and 12, mastery. Now you're on the other side and you're back with that elixir.
Okay, and so now we're going to get into the example, as I said, of Lord of the Rings. So we're going to break down each of the 12 steps. So step number 1 is the ordinary world. And this is where the audience meets the hero for the first time in the ordinary world. And so in the example of Lord of the Rings, Frodo and his best friend Sam live merrily in an ordinary village in the Shire. Now, obviously to us, the Shire is not really an ordinary world, but to them, it's a very, peaceful place. They live happily and comfortably. And that is exactly where Frodo intends to stay, until we find out that he gets a call to adventure, and that is step number 2. So the hero receives the call to adventure, which is a challenge, request, or problem that must be faced and has disrupted the ordinary world. And so here, this is where Gandalf, he enters into the Shire and he urges Frodo to set out on a quest to destroy the ring, right? He tells them what the ring is and all the history of it and why it must be destroyed. Step number 3, the refusal of the call. So the hero expresses fear, insecurity, or inadequacy and is reluctant or fully refuses the call at first. And so in this example, Frodo is initially very reluctant to leave his comfortable life in the Shire, right? He questions, why me? Why am I the one to do this? I'm just an ordinary hobbit, right? Why do I have to do this? But when he is almost killed by the Ringwraiths, Sauron's minions, he realizes his life will always be at risk as long as the ring exists. So Frodo is the perfect example of a reluctant hero, right? He doesn't believe in himself at first. He doesn't believe that he's the one that can destroy this ring, but he ends up doing it because he realizes, I'm never going to be able to go back to my normal life. And me and anyone who has this ring is always going to be at risk of danger, and I can't live with myself if I didn't destroy this, if I don't even at least try, right? So step number 4, that is meeting the mentor or guide. So a meeting with the mentor provides encouragement, wisdom, magical powers, gifts, etc., in order to push the hero past fear and doubt. And so in the example here, Frodo meets the Fellowship, right? The group of trusted allies of Gandalf that have pledged to help Frodo on his quest to destroy the ring. Right, so here he definitely feels more encouraged. He's like, I had people who are on my team, who know how to fight, who care for me, who have my back, and now he is strengthened to, really endure the
commitment.
Exactly. Okay, step number 5, crossing the threshold. So this is essentially, the point of no return. The hero finally accepts the challenge and crosses the threshold into the special world. And I mean, it's a very great example with Lord of the Rings too, because the movie is so scenic, it's so beautiful, and they literally are crossing, across these big mountains and this big, vast amount of land, and it's very symbolic of really like crossing into a new world, right? So Frodo begins his quest with the aid of the Fellowship on his long journey to the volcano Mount Doom, the only place that the ring can be destroyed. Step number 6, test allies and enemies. So here, the hero learns about this special world through tests, trials, and encountering allies and enemies. So Frodo journeys over the mountain pass, barely escapes the wrath of the Balrog, becomes allies with the elves, almost captured by the forces of Saruman, and attacked by Gollum, and is nearly eaten by a carnivorous spider, Shelob. So yes, this is a scene here where he encounters this giant man-eating spider, or hobbit-eating spider in this case, and he has all these different challenges along the way, and it is quite a terrifying journey. Step number 7, approach the Inmost cave. So here the hero makes the final preparations and arrangements to approach the Inmost cave. So Frodo departs from the Fellowship alone with Sam to continue his journey to the fires of Mount Doom. Gollum guides them through the secret back paths to reach the entrance of Mount Doom. And I couldn't find probably even a better photo that's like this, where they're quite literally looking into a cave to symbolize the Inmost cave. Step number 8, the Ordeal. So this is where the hero endures the ordeal, the central crisis in which the hero confronts his greatest fear and tastes death. So Frodo must survive the Dead Marshes and defeat Gollum in order to achieve his goal of reaching Mount Doom to destroy the ring, right? So this is where he is about to throw the ring into the fiery lava and then is attacked by Gollum and must fight him to the death. Mm-hmm. Step number 9, reward. So the hero enjoys the reward and newfound strength of confronting the biggest enemy and fear. So Frodo destroys the ring in the fires of Mount Doom, and the Fellowship and its allies overcome the forces of Sauron.
Pretty epic scene.
Yeah, this is where you actually see, the ring being disintegrated and engulfed in the fires, knowing it will never hurt anyone ever again. Step number 10, road back. So the hero takes the road back to the ordinary world and recommits to completing the journey. And this is where Frodo falls unconscious from exhaustion and from a sword wound, and Sam and Frodo are then rescued by Gandalf and his giant eagles, right? So they pick them up and they carry them back to, I think they actually take them back to Rivendell. And then step number 11, the resurrection. So the hero faces the climactic ordeal that purifies, redeems, and transforms the hero on the threshold home. So Frodo returns to consciousness several weeks after and witnesses Aragorn's marriage to his longtime love, Arwen, and Aragorn's ascent to the throne. All the members of the Fellowship are knighted by Aragorn. So this is also very symbolic because, it's called the resurrection, and quite literally, as you mentioned earlier, like everyone is dressed in white. It's a very bright, happy scene.
Exactly.
Just very peaceful and very joyful. And step number 12, the last one, return with Elixir. So the hero returns with the Elixir, whether that be a lesson, a story, a weapon, or a power, sometimes a mix of all of them or some, to benefit the ordinary world. And so here Frodo returns to the Shire a changed hobbit. He's grown and realized he can no longer go back to his ordinary life. So he decides to leave with Gandalf, Bilbo, and the elves to the Undying Lands to live peacefully for the rest of eternity. So that's kind of more the external, right? He actually physically goes to the Undying Lands. He leaves the Shire. And then the internal is Frodo has self-realization and the knowledge of good and evil. He is no longer naive or sheltered, and his enemies are defeated, and his allies are honored and receive happy endings on their own. And so his internal transformation there is, he's matured, he's brave, he knows what he's capable of, and he now has a very deep understanding of the good and the evil that exists in the world. Mm-hmm. So we love Lord of the Rings, and we thought that'd be a pretty awesome example.
Yeah, I hope you love that. All right. And I want to just simplify it for you with this story brand. This is something we learned from Donald Miller. And yeah, basically this can really boil down to 7 points. And again, I recommend you do, of course, the whole Heroes 2 journey, and we're going to show you some exercises, but here is what it looks like in short. So it's a character, and this could be you or your customer, your ideal avatar, right, that we talked about in lesson and in the gift. So as a character that has a problem, that meets a guy that will be you, who gives them a plan. That's your process, your methodology, what you're taking them from current self to desired self. We talked about this as well. and then calls them to action, right? That's the actual, like, hey, like, let's do this. And you're there with them. And of course, you have to present with them what happens if they do win, if it ends in success, and what happens if not. What does failure look like? What does success look like? And so when this is like literally planted and done, you can create a story for any type of video, for any type of book, for any type of marketing campaign really, really easily, following a proven process.
And I mean, this is essentially what we had you guys do for your vision, right? And what we've done for ourselves in the vision. You can see what the end looks like when you succeed, right? All of those goals that you have for your life. And then you can also see, when you wrote in your consequences, what happens if you fail, right? And usually those consequences are pretty dire, and you don't want to get to that. And so you have to go on this journey and fight as hard as you can to come out triumphantly. And so here we're going to get into some examples from some books and movies that you probably know.
Yeah, so this is the Hunger Games. Her character is Katniss. The problem, and notice how it divides into 3 and even 4, which is an enemy. I don't know why they didn't write it here, but essentially Katniss has the enemy, which is the capital. External, she must survive, of course. It's her skin at risk here. But the internal is that she wants to stay good and authentic throughout this. And the philosophical is the tyranny versus democracy. Who's the mentor? Haymitch. He's won the Hunger Games. So it gives him a plan. You have to endure the public to get sponsors. So that's the key.
Right. So
it gives him like the key to win this battle. You have to
appeal to the people in order to get
put on a show, kind of like Gladiator. And then calls them to action. Go compete. Go do it. You can do this. And of course, success looks like District 12 rejoices, failure, District 12 is crushed. You see, in essence, a movie that was like 3 parts can be summarized in a very short story like this. We take things from the super macro and complex into the micro. Now we got Star Wars. Of course, what other awesome example? Again, popular movies, so that you guys understand. Luke is our character. The villain, of course, becomes Darth Vader. And the external, he must defeat the Empire. Internal, is he really a Jedi? Does he have what it takes? Philosophical, of course, good versus evil, like light versus darkness. And meets Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's the guide here, who's already traveled that road. He's already lived as a Jedi. He tells them, you have to trust the Force. That's the plan. That's exactly what you got to do. And he trains them, right? And he tells them, go defeat the Empire. And again, the rebellion avoids defeat, or the rebellion is crushed, right? That's what happens. And so the story brand follows this 8-step framework. Character, what do they want? Who has a problem? Who's the villain? What's the internal struggle, external struggle, philosophical struggle? And meets a guide. Empathy and authority. And we're going to take a look, and we actually have given you a sheet with some questions to help you expand on this for yourself. But these are just elements that the guide should have in order to obviously help our character. And who gives them a plan? What does the process look like? We talked about the process and the offer. You should already have this part. You can just write it down, put it together. And what's the agreement? What are the terms and conditions, of executing this plan? And of course, calls them to action. And I love here that they've divided direct and transitional, because most often than not, and that's what we're going to teach you, we talked about leads and we talked about sales, right? Direct is the whole, hey, would you marry me? But transitional is like, hey, would you go out with me? Would you have a date with me, right? It's an easy way you can see it, like buy now versus download PDF, right? Very easy way to, again, put it all in one place. And of course, listing what happens if it ends in success, what happens if, it ends in failure. And here's the best part, because we go back to the whole current self, desire self. Again, we always go back to that, because that's the most important thing you're really doing for your audience and what you're doing for your customers. You take them from where they are right now to where they want to go.
The current situation,
the transformation,
to the desired situation. Mm-hmm.
So what's your story brand? What's your specific story? Put yourself and ask, if I were the character, what would my problems be? villain, external, internal, philosophical, who would my mentor be, right? And then from there, what do they have that's empathy, that is authority? What's the processor plan? And then from there, you can pretty much map it out for yourself. And so we're going to talk about Epiphany Bridge stories. This is an easy framework to tell your stories and to transform people's beliefs, okay? We've established why storytelling is so powerful. We've dove deep now into both the internal journey and the external journey in macro detail. We've gave you a cheat sheet on how to go from place to place, from character to problem in a very easy framework so it doesn't overwhelm you. And now we're going to show you how you can craft the actual stories that will transform people's beliefs. All right, so the Epiphany Bridge script, we learned this from Russell Brunson, is so amazing. Again, very similar to what we just showed you. That's why it all kind of comes back together. Number one, the backstory. Number two, the desires. Number three, the wall or the journey. Number four, the epiphany or the new opportunity. Number five, the plan or process. Number six, the conflict. Number seven, what happens in the achievement. And of course, what is the actual transformation? So here's a couple examples. I'm just going to make them up on spot. The backstory is Susie. And Susie has been bullied in school all her life because she was overweight. What are the external desires? She wants to be fit. She wants to have a very slim body. What's the internal? She wants to have the confidence to know that she does matter and that she does, can fit in and have friends that like really love her. The wall, well, she doesn't feel confident about herself, about her body, about anything, and she feels that people are bullying her, and that's just the way it is until she finds the keto diet. All right, that becomes the new opportunity. She tried to diet in the past. She tried to do exercise in the past, and it didn't work until she found the keto diet. That's the plan.
And the epiphany might have been, these other diets didn't work because, I don't know, let's say they had a certain type of nutrient that, wasn't really working. But with the keto diet, she cut things out of her diet there, and those were the villains. And so now that she has this epiphany that this is the diet, the only way, this is the way my body's going to, react in a way that I can lose weight and feel healthy, then I can continue with the plan.
Exactly. So the plan is 12 weeks of keto, with some other, specific recipes. But the conflict, she realizes that throughout this, she almost bails and she almost, loses track of her progress and all this. But finally ends in achievement and the transformation. She goes from, 350 pounds to like 170. Let's look at rags and riches. Let's take a look at Bob. Bob, his backstory is that he grew up poor. He never had anything. He, as a matter of fact, used to eat from a bowl that was made out of stone.
It's interesting words.
Thanks. I'm just like, just riffing here, but just so, we make it clear. The external, see, you love it. Sure, I love the stories. The external is, of course, he wants to be able to help himself, help his family, help his village. The internal is he just doesn't think he has what it takes. He just doesn't think that he has the character, the skills, the knowledge to be able to make money or to be able to, bless the village. The wall, of course, is he's poor. He has no access to anyone that has money or can teach him, but he visits an internet cafe that just was recently installed in the village and discovers the authentic authority. And the plan, we tell them, hey, it's a 12-week mentorship program. And we give him a full scholarship, because we thought that he's just an absolute go-getter. And so he goes into this massive conflict because no one of his family believes him. They think he should be just farming corn like the rest of his family. But he finally does it and achieves it.
Yes, the corn farmers.
He finally achieves it and, becomes rich and helps his family. And the transformation is, of course, his whole village and his whole lifestyle changes, right? So you can see, you can see how fast you can tell a story using this framework that is touching, that puts everything that you need to know to build the right stuff. Now let's look here at my buddy here, Johnny. All right. So Johnny was always rejected by girls growing up. Okay. Johnny had really bad luck. You know, it just seemed like always they would choose other people and they would say him that he was ugly, that he, you know, he never had a girlfriend before. So everyone felt bad about him and he was the loser of the class. So the external, he just wanted to.
Damn, poor Johnny.
Poor Johnny. Exactly. So see, it already built empathy. She doesn't even know Johnny.
But I feel bad for
I
Johnny.
feel bad for Johnny. Okay. What's the desire? Well, the external is, of course, she wants to find the love of his life. The internal is he wants to feel loved. He wants to feel accepted. He wants to feel significant to someone else. But there's a huge wall. He feels like a loser. He actually has like no self-esteem. He has no skills. He's a scrawny little dude. He has no style, right? But he finds this awesome mentor.
Name Andres.
Well, sure, you know, and tells them like, listen, in, you know, very easily, all you have to do is, you know, believe in your mission and your purpose, and then that will give you like such fire to go get what you want. And then while you do that, you will attract the love of your life. And so it gives them a 6-month program on how to transform himself. Conflict, very, very hard. You know, he goes up there, he still gets, you know, kind of rejected. He's still battling through, you know, trying to be disciplined and trying to, you know, change his lifestyle, like going to the gym. But finally,
he goes to a salsa festival and that's love of his life. Oh, wait, that's our story.
Oh, wait, that's your story. And then finally, of course, he falls in love with Sally here. And, you know, the transformation is he goes from single and loser to being a winner. And again, doesn't need to be a winner in front of the eyes of the world, but just a winner in front of this beautiful person that he loves, and he lives happily ever after. Boom. That is the power of the Epiphany Bridge script that I've just showed you in the health, the wealth, and the relationships market, so you can see how it would apply to you. So let's go even more granular. So there's literally no excuse for you to not create amazing content and not do stories. So the backstory, what's the question? What is your backstory that gives us a vested interest in your journey? Okay. Most often than not, they will start with some sort of situation where you either feel bad about them, or you like them, or they're funny, or there is, you know, something about them that gives you a vested interest. And what is it that you want to accomplish? That's your desires. Well, divides in two, A and B. External. What is the external struggle that you are dealing with? What is the internal struggle that you're dealing with? And obviously what do you want to accomplish, right? As it relates to each of them. 3, the wall. What was the wall or problem that you hit within your current opportunity that started you on this new journey, right? As I shared with you in the examples and even in the Frodo example. Okay, like the wall is, yeah, they were just caught in this ordinary world, but they were not fulfilled. They were not where they wanted to be. And number 4, the epiphany. What was the epiphany you experienced and the new opportunity that you discovered? The plan. What was the plan you created to achieve your desire? The conflict. What conflict did you experience along the way? The achievement. What was the end result that you achieved? And the transformation. What was the transformation you experienced? Super, super easy. Again, you can see the little diagram. You can just memorize that and then ask yourself, ask your customer, ask, you know, whatever story you're crafting, you can use this framework. It's really cool.
Actually. As we said, you're going to get sheets where it really breaks down how to do this, right? So we're going to kind of give you a brief overview of that at the end, just so you know, feel guided in what you're doing. Because I know it's a lot.
It's a lot of information.
Yes, and there's a lot of different ways that we're explaining very similar concepts, and so we will definitely dive into that a bit at the end.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things to notice too is that as you go through this lesson, and you might feel overwhelmed with a lot of information, we are dropping a lot of golden nuggets that has taken us hours upon hours of putting this together. So please go back to these lessons, go back to the videos. You know, you might not catch everything the first time around. You might need to watch it multiple times, and it's designed that way so that each module you can watch a couple of times throughout the week, and each sheet you can implement throughout the week as well. So, you know, we've seen some programs that they give you like daily videos to watch, but it's so much easier to have everything in one place and be able to see it from start to end and memorize all the different pieces as you go. So let's take a look at the 3 traffic temperatures. And this is important because, again, depending on where your customer is, they will tell themselves a different story.
Right. Kind of like the Epiphany bridge script that you just went through, right? So it's kind of like seeing if someone is, extremely unaware of their problem, or
Right.
whether they're problem aware, whether they're solution aware product, they need an epiphany at every single stage.
Right.
A new epiphany is going to get them from unaware to problem aware.
Yeah.
Another epiphany is going to get them from problem aware to solution aware, and so on.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's multiple epiphanies within the larger story.
Exactly.
Right. And that's a very key concept here. And again, with the homework at the end, we're going to get more into that.
Yeah.
But no, there are multiple epiphanies sometimes throughout one larger story.
Exactly. Just like we saw here in the Hunger Games, right? Yeah. Each part here, or even in Star Wars, each bubble here that they have to move through, it's a new epiphany. When Luke meets Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's a different epiphany. He just didn't know that he needed to trust the Force. Another epiphany, right? And so each one gives him a new aha moment, like we saw, like I put here. And again, because all goes back to beliefs, and beliefs are stories, then of course the Epiphany Bridge script bridges that gap between the two. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Unaware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, most aware. And in reality, the 3 traffic temperatures or pre-frames are cold, warm, and hot. Okay, so what does this mean to you? What does it mean in your marketing? Okay, so again, if your story was Johnny in wanting to find the love of his life, being cold is, I don't know what to do. Maybe even before the problem, like he didn't know he had to change his style and be more confident in himself. He didn't even know he had a confidence issue. So the unaware stage would be just like completely like over his head of what he should do.
Right. If he's problem aware, he may know, okay, I don't have a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence. I don't feel like have a good style. But now there's a solution. It's like, look, you can go to the gym, change some things to change your style, and really confidence comes from within, comes from your mission, comes from your heart. Now he said, wow, that's amazing. But how does that actually look like? Just because you know that you need more confidence doesn't mean you still know how to get there, which is now where the product part comes in and says, hey, this is a program, a solution, a pill, whatever it is that's going to actually get you to go from your problem to a solved problem. And of course, when you're there at that point where you have to destroy the ring, you already know exactly what you should do, and you're already on your way, you're hot, you're ready to, just take that leap and go again from cold to hot, from unaware to most aware.
Right. And
does that make sense?
Yeah, this was a big game changer. Obviously, we learned a lot of this from, again, Russell Brunson. He's the one that, gave us a lot of information about storytelling and really opened our eyes to how to do that. And also Scott Alford with his temperatures as well. I think he calls it, the slow lane, the fast lane.
Yeah, he goes at sidewalk, slow lane, fast lane.
Right,
yeah.
But he's saying the exact same thing as cold, warm, hot, as Russell Brunson. Yeah. And it's all down to communication, right? Because if you're talking about just merely a problem to someone who is a hot, in the hot traffic and they're ready to buy, they're already product aware.
Yeah.
You may not need to be, pushing that pain anymore. They're like, I get it. I already know I have a problem.
Yeah, tell me more about the product.
I need to know how I'm going to buy that solution and get me to the next level. Right. Whereas if someone's unaware, if someone's completely unaware and you're talking about your product, they're going to keep scrolling because they're going to think it's not relevant to them. They're like, why should I even care about this? They're not conscious enough of what their needs are. And so how you communicate to them is really important throughout these different stages.
Exactly.
As I said, you're giving them an epiphany through every single stage.
Exactly.
Right. And your sheets that you're going to get later are going to help you do that with your ideal avatar.
Yes, exactly. And again, this is very key because when you talk about content, right, we talked about growing a Facebook group last week, and it's very key, very important for you to, grow your business, to really cultivate this audience. You might have an audience already that needs to grow even bigger, or you might not have an audience that you're trying to grow. And again, no matter if you're an expert, a coach, a professional, an affiliate market, whatever, you need an audience of people that like, know, and trust you. But You are going to talk to them differently based on their awareness levels, based on their temperature, because you want to be hyper relevant to them. If you are, again, like my wife said, if you are telling them about the solution, but yet they're like so stuck in the problem, or they don't even know what the problem is, then you're missing the point altogether.
Your message is going to fall on deaf ears.
Exactly. So here are the 3 traffic temperatures. Hot. If your prospect is aware of your product and has realized it can satisfy, keyword, their desire, your headline starts with the product. If your prospect is not aware of your product, but only of the desire itself, your headline starts with the desire. And if your prospect is not aware of what they really seek, but is concerned with the general problem, your headline starts with the problem and crystallizes it into a specific need. Okay? Very key words that I believe this is a quote actually altogether from Gene Stewart, I think is his name, or Gwen Stewart, something like that. But he was one of the first ones that kind of summarized this concept really well as we've been obviously evolving in marketing and in communications. So yes, it really depends of where they are in their awareness level. And again, to give you a quick example, a cold traffic for us would be someone that is just concerned on the general problem of, hey, I don't have enough clients, or not enough leads, or not enough this. So the first headline on cold would be something like, hey, stop hustling to trying to get more clients. Stop wasting your time doing this and this and that. They're like, man, yeah, I'm wasting my time on this, or it feels like it.
And the reality is that the majority of your audience is going to be at that level, right? The people that are really ready to buy and that are extremely aware, the hot traffic, it is a much lower percentage, but there is definitely a time to talk to them because they're the action takers, right? And so your ultimate goal is to really, with your content, move them from cold to hot. Right, you're gonna transform them, like bring them through those different stages.
Exactly.
So yeah, as you said, someone who's just, I need more money, I don't have enough clients, they're cold. Someone who has realized, I think I need to raise my prices. I think that I'm charging too little and I'm feeling burnt out. And I think that I need some kind of systemization because I'm just working 14-hour days and I don't have any structure. I don't have predictability. Okay. They're solution aware. They're like, I am ready for this solution.
I need to productize my knowledge. I need to leverage systems so I can spend more time with my family and my loved ones, right? That's the warm. And then the hot would be like, hey, do you want to implement the impact formula? Do you want to jump to the next level in the authentic authority
formula? They've seen the name a few times. They haven't bought yet, but they're like, I know what that is. I'm aware of what it does.
So we can start with
give me a call to action.
With the headline of the product.
Exactly.
Okay, and again, you can take a screenshot of this, pause it, take a look at it. I'm not going to dive into everything. Tofu, top of the funnel. This is where your prospects become aware of the problem and solution. Your middle of the funnel. This is where, and I'm reading over here, where they convert problem aware and solution aware into actual leads. Okay, that's your middle of the funnel. And the bottom of the funnel is when they are ready, your leads, you've nurtured your leads, and they're ready to make an informed purchase decision. Again, we go from unaware to most aware. And let me just read to you this part because it's very interesting. The top of the funnel is content at the top of the funnel facilitates awareness, okay? Awareness of the problem, awareness of the solution. Content in the middle of the funnel facilitates evaluation, right? So now you're telling them about your process. You're telling them about your methodology, the impact formula. And then, in our case or whatever your case, your name that you give it is. And then the bottom of the funnel where you actually give them a value video, something that, basically pitches them, that gives them the opportunity, the phone call, the webinar, the demo, draw something here of some sorts. And again, all the way to obviously at the bottom here becoming a paid client. Okay, so again, you might want to take a look at this deeper, but always remember that, because as you convert strangers into leads and then leads into sales, you're going to want to treat them differently. You're not going to send one massive message to the ones that are your leads and the ones that are your, just cold traffic. It wouldn't work. because some might feel like you're talking to, the wrong prospect. Again, if you are a business owner, let's say, that sells clothes, you're going to talk very differently. Someone that is already very informed of like exactly what you do, what you sell and everything, versus someone that just walked in the store for the first time. Very different start of the conversation, very different story that you're going to tell them, right? Mm-hmm. So that is it. Okay, so I want to dive into the 12 psychological triggers, and these are literally going to become your kinds or types of content that is going to move someone from stranger all the way to the sale. It's really have been boiled down into these 12 ones, and they're psychological triggers. They actually trigger different parts of your customer's brain to be able to get the right epiphanies to like, know, and trust you, and be able to make an informed buying decision. Okay, if you use them, and I'm going to give you a cheat sheet on this too, so you know exactly how to make content. Okay, so here are the 12 psychological triggers. Number 1, pain/problem. Content that agitates and highlights a problem or pain in your customers' lives. Okay, we talked about this already. That is the main problem, the nasty, external, internal, etc. that you can do.
Yep, and then number 2 is process and method. So content that shows your 3 to 5 steps to get the desired result. And so again, using our own example, that would be, the impact formula that you're going through right now, right? You are currently going through the voice, so you're in the 3rd of our 4 steps.
Right, exactly. Number 3, personal story. And again, these are not actually in specific order. We're going to put them in actual buckets and frameworks in just a second, just so you see where they go. But there's just a list of all of them. Number 3, personal story. Content that shines who you are in a personable, authentic, and vulnerable way. We talked about how people do not do business with logos or companies. People do business with people. That is just the basis and foundation of it. And the days where it was just like a company and it was so like business is dead, because without trust, there's no transaction. People are so skeptic. So you need those personal stories to connect with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4, personal philosophy and beliefs. So this is content that highlights the values, beliefs, and philosophies you live by, right? So as an example, let's say that family is really important to you. So in some of your personal philosophy content, you may talk about your family and the values that you really believe a family should entail. Or you may talk about, mental health. Maybe you meditate and you eat really healthy. That's really important belief and value in your life, and you share that within your content to your audience. Right.
Yep, exactly. Number 5, results/case studies, content that shows results and transformation that you have achieved in your customers' lives. These are important because these are stories from other people that give the aha moment for your audience. Doesn't matter. Again, it could be a weight loss. Hey, look at Susie, how she lost this many pounds. Or look at Bob that made this much money. Or look at, this person that just improved his mindset or his lifestyle in any way.
Exactly. Number 6, lifestyle. So this is content that shows how you live, the places you go, the food you eat, the habits you have, etc. So yeah, I think on social media, we probably all know what that is. A lot of people today, snapshotting photos or videos of, the countries they're traveling to and the food that they're eating. And this is just pretty much a sneak peek, like behind the scenes of your life, kind of like a reality show.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
And honestly, people build full brands on literally just lifestyle, and within that, they start sharing some of the other personal stories, method, etc. But I think a lot of people that are Insta famous or YouTube famous, sometimes those guys are broke because they don't know how to monetize the audience, because they just put ton of lifestyle stuff, but they don't know how to move them, right? So that's why you have to have all 12 of them, I believe, in order to have a holistic, well-done campaign.
For sure.
Number 7, questions and polls. Of course, we love when people ask us our opinion. We love when we can participate with the person that we're following. We don't want a one-way conversation. We love dialogue. And so questions and polls allow you to do that. It's content that is engaging and interactive with your audience.
And a good way to really get very quick feedback
Yeah.
from your audience as well. Like if you're genuinely wondering, I don't know if they want this or they want this, well, just ask them. And people love giving their responses, or they love sharing what they think. So it's a really great way to kind of perfect what you're doing and really get to the core of what your audience wants.
Exactly.
Yeah. Number 8 is invite and CTA, call to action. So content that invites them to take action and the next steps in getting the result they want. So kind of like what we're talking about in the cold, warm, and hot. If you have someone who is cold and just beginning to become problem aware, then you might ask them to, download your free guide, right? That might be the call to action for them, but invite them to do that. If they're warm and they, have an idea of what they need, they're like, yeah, I know I need to raise my prices and productize my services and so on, then you may invite them to maybe hop on to a training. It's kind of a training they could watch to learn more about, the process that you take them through. And then if they are well aware of, the product that you have and the service you provide, you may call them to hop on a call with you. And that would be the call to action.
Right. Exactly. Then we got 9, which is authority/value. And this is just content that educates, inspires, and describes the problem and solution better than they can. Okay, remember that on that first awareness stage that I showed you, top of the funnel, problem and solution is usually where you're going to be, gravitating in your content to attract that. And it can look like 3 secrets to achieve blank result, or 5 tips, 5 lessons I've learned from doing $100,000 a year, or things like that.
Number 10, testimonials. So this is content that features others speaking well about you and your accomplishments. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you already helped a client previously and they got really good results with the process that you have in your services, then you would want to get either maybe on video or in a written post, what their experience was like working with you. Yeah. Right? And then you would share that with other people to build more trust from the audience that you have.
Totally. Number 11, PR/features. Okay, and we've probably seen this, sometimes overdone because people just want to rely on this, and sometimes they manufacture them, to seem famous or whatever. But it's the content that creates celebrity status in the eyes of your customer. And a lot of you I know might not have this. Like we don't really have, PRs and features, huge mentions like that. But 11 is one of those that you need a little bit later in the game. And obviously if you can get it now, that's amazing. And one of the easy ways to achieve this without having to be a major publication is interviews. When other people interview you, it creates that celebrity status. It's someone that's saying, hey, I want to know your story. I want to ask you some questions, and then you participate in a specific audience. And all of a sudden you have been featured and you kind of have this new status in the eyes of your customer.
Right. And then number 12, training. So content that builds trust, goodwill, and helps them solve for free part of the problem. So you can either do a training, sometimes you can do it on a Facebook Live. Sometimes you can do a webinar, whatever that may be. It's, going to be between, let's say, 20 minutes and an hour of pretty solid content that's really going to move them to hopefully another level of awareness, right? From either cold to warm or warm to hot. So it's pretty much as a value-packed seminar that you're going to put them through. And those work really well as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so putting it all together, take a really good look at this. This is really awesome. Something, we created for you so that you can see how it all connects, because again, throughout this lesson, you've been understanding the power of storytelling. You dove into the deeper, 12 steps of your hero's journey, internal and external. Then you looked at the cheat sheet, going to see how all of them connect in like 7-8 steps to create stories. Then you got this script of knowing how to tell these stories. And now here's how you combine your stories with these blocks or types of content with, of course, the problems and needs of your customer. So number 1, or column 1, I should say, you have problem aware or cold traffic. Okay, their commitment level, because they do not know you, they're unaware to problem aware, is 3 minutes. Probably not more than that, and this is one of those things where you gotta understand that when people don't know you yet, You can't just ask for them to see a huge video or read a huge article. You have to be able to deliver in a punchy way. And here are the 5 types of content that you can use to attract people that are cold and problem aware. Pain and problem, authority/value, PR and features, personal philosophy, question/polls. Okay, these are things that will attract most likely someone that is in that stage to give you a nice pre-frame in order for them to cross that threshold and go into your ecosystem. The call to action will just probably be learn more. There's nothing yet to be sold, nothing for sale here. Learn more, that's it. It's more information. And then it carries you to solution aware or warm traffic. Their commitment level now is 5 to 15 minutes. This is very key because you want to customize the level of value and the length of your value depending on where they are. You now have 6, process or method, which is like the impact formula or your 3 to 5 steps to get that result. 7, personal stories. Now people can hear more about you. Now you can start introducing more about your own personal stories, or you can still tell stories in the pain, problem, authority, etc., but you're not featuring the story, you're featuring the problem. Number 8, lifestyle. Number 9, results/case studies. Okay, and again, you don't want to show those too early because people don't even really know what the problem is. So, even though some of these ones you can kind of intermingle, keeping the commitment level frame and length in mind will allow you to make those decisions. So when you think of your content, and I'm going to get there in a second with this sheet right here on like literally 3 steps on creating this your content, so you never have to guess again or come to the computer thinking, what do I do this time? How do I communicate with my audience in an effective way? And we look at the last one, which is product aware or hot traffic. Their commitment level now is 15 to 90 minutes. It could be a training, it could be testimonials that feature, an interview, something longer format like that. And of course, your invite/call to action. And look at the call to actions as well. Sale or call would be the product aware. It could be a sales page that asks for the sale, or it could be a call. Or if it's in warm, it would just be a deep dive, someone that wants to learn more about your product and what you're all about. But do notice though, that certain things such as personal philosophy, lifestyle, personal story, like those 3 right there, you can kind of sprinkle throughout because those just add personality and reinforce your brand, reinforce your message.
Right. Obviously within warm, they're going to, I guess, be more invested in who you are. Like they're going to care more.
Right.
But you can absolutely use a personal story to cold traffic too, to gain interest.
Right.
Or you could open it up with a pain, and then the pain goes talking about a personal
you
story.
got it.
Experience.
Exactly.
So a lot of them can also intermingle, right?
Yeah.
You can get creative, but we did just want to kind of
there's a general framework.
If you were to separate all of them, the 12 different psychological triggers that you can and should use.
Exactly. Because ultimately, depending on your audience specifically and your own blue ocean and niche, some of this one might vary a little bit, but do notice that the commitment levels usually stay pretty consistent and constant throughout any industry, because when people don't know you or they don't like you or they don't trust you yet, they're going to act differently and they're not going to commit that much time to hearing what you have to say.
Exactly, especially with our attention spans today.
Yeah.
Less than a goldfish.
Especially. Yeah.
They're just going to keep scrolling if they don't know who you are. They know you, they might give you a few minutes now. Yeah. If they know you and they like you, they're going to give you even longer. And if they trust you, they're probably going to get on the phone even. Yeah. Right, for a good even hour. Right?
Yeah, exactly. There's, of course, exceptions to the rule, but keep this guideline as a general process so that you know where they are, how you talk to them, and what kind of content you should use. So here is the cheat sheet, and I love this so much because it really goes into 3 steps. I want you to just see the bold titles, 1, 2, 3. So read them with me. Pick one pillar and topic of your brand. Okay, so if you've already obviously done your message, your avatar, and you've clarified really what that transformation is that you should have done weeks ago, you can safely put the different problems that they're having here and the different issues that your audience is facing here, and you'll have a nice, column with a bunch of topics.
Different topics that you want to address.
Yeah, that you want to address as they relate to their problem. Number 2, you pick one psychological trigger that's appropriate to how you're speaking to them. Personal story, a lifestyle, depending on what you feel will communicate that topic better. And number 3, you want to pick one story or illustration, because again, we talked about the power of stories throughout this lesson. So you always want to pick at least one story to be able to communicate and wrap it around. If you just present that topic with no personality, with no story, with none of that, it's going to be very bland. It's just going to be very like salesy or very businessy. But a story makes it come alive, and it adds emotion and conflict in a way that's easy to digest.
Right. It gets them to know the face behind the brand.
Yes.
And that's really what people want. It's what you want.
Yeah. So again, you can kind of freeze this frame and, take a good look at it and try to come up with your own. Again, column 2 will probably not change, because these are the 12 psychological triggers that just simply work when it comes to creating content and moving your customer from stranger to
exactly. Number 1, number 3. Those are going to customize to you and your specific story and business.
Yeah, number 1 you should already have, for the most part, when it comes to understanding your avatar, their problems, their needs, their pains, their hopes, their dreams, their different beliefs that are blocking them. Those go right there. But the stories, that's the one that you're going to be creating and exploring with our resources at the end of this lesson. So just want to give you some easy frameworks, because even with all that, sometimes we can get stuck and not knowing how to make our content. So here is a super easy framework to use. Number 1, hook. Come up with the big idea or a curiosity hook that will get them to stop what they're doing and pay attention to you. Key, stop. Because again, people with today's attention span, it's really hard. And so sometimes if the hook cannot be, it's not dialed in, doesn't matter how good the story or offer is. They won't even get there. They won't even stop. Number 2, the story. Come up with an Epiphany bridge story using the script we've already given you, or summarizing it in the brand story framework. And this will illustrate the epiphany that you're trying to give them. But remember, don't tell them the answer or solution. Have them come to the conclusion on their own through the story. So much more powerful when you can do that. And number 3, you give them an offer/lesson. That's why I put lesson, because no matter what, you want to always invite them to take action or summarize the main lesson of the story/post. Sometimes you'll have something to sell if you're creating that type of content or pillar. If you're doing maybe training, you'll have something to sell or invite them to a call, but maybe if you're doing just an authority one, you can still use this framework, and at the end just say, hey, what was valuable about it, or how would you do this differently, or how would, et cetera, et cetera. Easy framework. Number 2, problem, agitate, solution. Again, another easy framework you can use. You pick a problem, pick one NASP problem that your ideal client is having, and talk about it. The number 2, agitate it. You agitate it by illustrating it and adding detail and imagery to evoke pain and emotion. Remember at the beginning of the lesson, conflict brings out emotion, and so that agitation can look with a very quick story, like I said with my weight loss example, or my rags to riches, that boy in the village. You probably still remember even my story, even though I just made it up on the spot. The corn farmer. See, she remembers. You probably remember too. So you can pick the problem, you agitate it with an illustration, and then you give the solution and you talk about what will get rid of the problem once and for all, and describe how it would alleviate their pains. So literally with this, guys, I want to ask you, with this cheat sheet, with this framework of stories that is proven to work, with the very easy frameworks I've given you and the problems and pains defined of your customer, do you think that you could also be successful in turning and creating content that moves people to connect with you and take action? I think so.
I think so.
I think so too. I believe so. And so you are ready to rock. Now it's time for you to implement it, because otherwise you're not going to get anywhere with all this information.
Yeah, and implementing without the fear of, trying to make everything perfect. Because, again, I know whenever we're kind of bombarded with a lot of information, even if it makes sense and it seems exciting, we can again, get very quickly discouraged because we're like, well, I've never done that before. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if my stories are powerful enough, if my life is powerful enough. That's a trap we can get into.
Right.
And so taking action, any action is better than waiting for perfection.
Exactly.
And so our advice to you would just be to try.
Yeah.
To just try and get started.
Yeah. And we have a ton of examples for you of our own content, and I want to show them to you in just a little bit. But yeah, know that you have the framework, you have the know-how, you have examples, you have the resources and sheets. You can go out there and create the most amazing content for your business, trusting that using these frameworks and using stories as a whole will literally transform how people pay attention to you. And it will also not feel salesy or like, weird or awkward, because you're just telling stories. You're not trying to, jam any message down their throats.
Yeah, I definitely think storytelling for me personally has been one of the biggest game changers with that, because before it felt like just writing a post about, even
like website.
What I know, was like, how do you start it? How do you communicate that in a way that doesn't sound I don't know, like you said, just salesy or aggressive or kind of random. Like, why is it relevant to me? Right? They're kind of like, how does that relate to me?
How does that matter to me?
And so through storytelling, you can relate to people. It really builds empathy. Yeah. That's what it does, right? And it makes people make connections between you and them. Mm-hmm. And that's really what you want, right? Okay, and so these are the action steps for week 8, and we are going to show you exactly what these sheets and spreadsheets are. So number 1 is complete your story brand and Epiphany Bridge Stories worksheet. Number 2, create and plan your content using the content strategy spreadsheet. And number 3, as usual, please upload your weekly debrief video in the Slack community by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, and so as we said, we're going to go and show you the story brand Epiphany Bridge stories. So that is actually this handout. And these questions are the ones that we were talking about when we showed you the example of Star Wars and the Hunger Games. Exactly. So we broke down each of the questions of what you actually need to put into each one. And so it says, answer the questions below to clarify the story brand for your ideal avatar, right? So we've given you examples of these big time books and movies, and now it is time to create this for your business, right? So what is your business's story brand? Obviously the character here is your ideal avatar, right? So what do they want? What is their problem, right? Both the external and the internal and the philosophical. Well, the guide, that's you. You're the guide. And so really diving into like, how can you empathize with them while simultaneously have them view you as an authority figure who can definitely solve the problem that they have, right? Now, what is the plan, right? What is your process that you're going to take them through to get from the current result to the desired result, right? What actions do they have to take? Right? What actions are you going to put in front of them for them to take?
Is it transitional? Is it direct? Sometimes, again, the direct one would be once they're at the product aware stage, but the transitional will be if they're in the problem or solution stage.
Exactly. So that ends in success. So here you would talk about, what does that positive desired result look like if they use your product or service? And what is it going to look like if they don't? Right? What's going to happen if they don't get to that desired result? What are all those consequences? Right. And then last but not least, what is the transformation that your character, your ideal avatar is going from, right? Are they broke, unhappy, and stressed to at peace, making 5 to 6 figures and fully confident and loving their life? What is that big transformation externally and internally for them, right? So super important. This is essentially the story of your brand. Yeah. Okay.
And remember, you are not the hero.
No.
When talking, to your customers, when building your business, you are not like, one of the biggest problems we always see people do is they want to make themselves the hero of the story, and they feature their, brand and their all the accolades and all the things that they've done, and they have such a high need for significance that way that they forget that it's all about the customer. And so doing it this way will help you also not fall into that trap and be able to, in one short little story, know what your message and your brand is all about.
Right. Because you're important only in the sense to them as they can see themselves in you. Right. That's really where your importance comes in, right? You proving that you are the one to help them.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, your success doesn't mean much to them if you're not going to use that success to help their success.
Exactly.
Right. So just something to definitely keep in mind as you're filling it out. And then the second part of that sheet is the Epiphany bridge stories. And it says, choose a minimum of 5 important milestones that you recall throughout your own journey that relate to the journey or the story brand you aligned above. So everything up here, okay, of your ideal avatar. So basically how your journey, milestones in your journey that relate to theirs, okay? And then for each milestone, answer all 8 Epiphany Bridge script questions, which are down here. We'll get into those.
And I'll just say quickly, one of the things I did that helped me a lot with this exercise was to just look at my life and look at those peaks and valleys like I was talking about. Right. You know, and you can go all the way back to like when you were born, literally, just to kind of give like, yeah, that was obviously a peak, right? When you were born, you know, your life started, and where were you? What happened? You know, what was the situation? Because again, that determines a lot of the setting of the story. You know, going all the way to your, you know, early childhood, to your teens, to your college, to your, you know, when you got married, if you were married, you know, and all these other, you know, big key moments that have influence, again, as it relates to your career or to your business or to your
or whatever
path.
Whatever the transformation is, like
whatever the transformation
trying to get.
You got it.
So it says here, remember, each of your 5 Epiphany Bridge stories should be helping your ideal avatar come to the same epiphanies or realizations that you came to along your own journey.
You got it.
The journey that led you to be the guide you are today. So very good example, as a personal example, you know, I may have, one of my peaks was when I quit my teaching job.
Yeah.
And I decided to go into online business full time with Inmost. Right. And so obviously, since we are helping people, you know, grow a 6-figure online business, packaging their knowledge and creating systems, essentially exactly what we did, then I can tell that story in full confidence, knowing that a lot of the people that are in my market, in my niche, have either had to already quit their jobs, and so they totally empathize with that and understand, or they've already thought about, should I quit my job? And they're pondering that and wrestling with that in their mind, right? And so that peak in my life is extremely relevant to them, right? I may have some peaks in my life that aren't so relevant to them, and that's why it's important to make sure it's relevant to who you're trying to serve, right? That's going to help them, right? And it does take sometimes some discernment to know what those are, but obviously, if you're in health, whatever your health epiphanies were in your life, that's what you want to business. Talk about those big moments when you jumped into business and something changed and you lost a bunch of money, you won a lot of money, whatever it might be, right? And so another example I put here is, let's say you're a fitness coach and you had an experience in the past where you tried on a pair of your favorite jeans. To your surprise, they no longer fit you. You were extremely disheartened and shocked. And this moment made you realize that you needed to start taking your weight and health more seriously. You had an epiphany that you needed to lose weight. Since your ideal avatar, you know, as a fitness coach, anyone you're serving must come to the same conclusion as you did if they want to better their health. You can use this Epiphany Bridge story to empathize with them, influence them to lose weight, and in turn become healthier and change their life, right? And so you might call this particular epiphany, as you were fleshing it out here, you might name it, you know, RIP, my favorite pair of jeans.
Right.
And that may catch someone's eye. Because they may have a similar experience. Yeah.
It's honestly an amazing exercise. It might honestly uncover even like deep things within you that might be holding you back, or things that will actually become a force when you realize like, oh my gosh, like no wonder why I'm so passionate about blank. And all of a sudden you'll find that story that really resonates with you. And you'll want to like tell everyone about it.
Exactly. So as I said, with this exercise, you're going to try and find at least 5 of those really big milestone moments.
Yeah, okay? So you'll use this with your content or pieces of it with your content as you go. So please take the time to do this. This is going to be an absolute game changer, because believe me, you're just one content piece away from transforming your business. You know, it takes one piece of content, the right piece of content, to go viral. So it only takes one piece of content.
That's very true.
To, you know, make an ad go like, you know, catch like wildfire.
Exactly. So yes, very, very valuable worksheet, and we really hope you take the time to find those stories that you have, because stories are powerful. And within every one of those milestones is a very big epiphany waiting to be had within people you're trying to help.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and then the second part of your homework, your action steps, is the content strategy. And so we've literally here given you our content strategy spreadsheet that we use. And so this is what we did with our last batch of content that we did back in November. We planned it all out using this sheet, the content stack. We started talking about, okay, these are the psychological triggers.
Yeah, pain, problem, case studies, like all the ones we showed you.
Yeah. Anyhow,
yeah.
That's it after, but you guys get the idea. So yeah, we went through all of the psychological triggers here. You can see some of them are here. And then we started to say, okay, what are those main topics? Right? What are the things that they are experiencing right now? What are the problems we're experiencing? This was back in our messaging sheet. Right. And then we decided, okay, what is the epiphany that they have to have? Right. So as an example here, this was a pain and problem. Topic was they think they don't have enough time. Right. They're struggling to juggle everything. Their families, their work life, their health. They don't know how they can do it all, fit it all in one day. Mm-hmm. And so the epiphany they had to have was everyone has the same amount of time in a day. So the illusion of not having enough time is a false belief. They need to believe that the right system or formula will solve this problem. Okay, and then we went in, we gave it a headline, and we gave some key things that we wanted to touch
key points
in that video.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a great planner. You can use this sheet to plan
your content. Yeah, and then after use that cheat sheet that we share with you on the slides to pick a story. And then once you have the points, you have the topic, you have the, sorry, let's go back to the step. Yeah. Yeah. So once you have you pick what topic you're going to do, you pick your psychological trigger, you basically put in short what the epiphany is, give it a content headline, put some points, pick the story. Literally, you can smash and make a really valuable piece of content, whether written, video, or audio form, that will literally be so engaging and will be so relevant to them as well. Because you literally with this, it's proven to, succeed.
Exactly. And so once you planned all that, then you can actually go into scheduling, right? When you're going to be posting all this, or if you have, virtual assistants that are going to help you post,
that's why this is
this is a great calendar that you can share with them. And that's exactly what we do. Right, this is exactly what we do. We share this with people that are helping us post, and they can just refer. Everything's very organized and neat, right? And so, as you can see here, again, we have the psychological trigger we put here just so we can see, that we're covering all our bases, and we put it in order that we think is very effective. We have all of our titles here, which is our topic. Mm-hmm. And then we actually go into the description / story for every single one.
Exactly. So you guys can read there, just to get an even better idea of all these different pieces. But know that when you follow that structure, you'll be able to create really quality content that's intentional, that also moves them to action, and they're proven to succeed. I mean, honestly, you have everything you need to, but the key is gonna, revolve around discovering and crafting those stories within you, discovering and crafting those stories within your customers, and then just basically putting them together within each of the external problems. Like your stories usually bring a lot of the internal and a lot of the business, or a lot of whatever your niche that you're in is now the external part. So when you put it all together, man, with this, you give it some virtual assistants, you can literally have a ton of content for days, and you don't have to be scrambling around or feeling worried or second guessing yourself. What kind of content should I make today? You have everything. You already know what pillars you have. And I would recommend, as far as your topics, you shouldn't have more than 10 different topics, because I would say not even more than 7 or 8, because, it's the power of repetition, the power of being able to show them.
And know that repetition is normal. Because sometimes it's going to take a few pieces of content
about the same topic.
Right, to break one person's, false belief and move them on to that next level.
Exactly.
Right. Sometimes it takes a few times for them to have that epiphany aha moment. Right. And so it is a lot of repetition, and it's okay. It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I know it can seem kind of weird. You're like, I just talked about this the other day. It's like, yeah,
right. But it's
your ideal avatar has the same epiphanies over and over again within your niche. And you need to keep giving them. Exactly.
Told in different stories, told in different angles. Different formats.
Yeah. It's different angles, different formats, but the exact same topic.
Different lengths too.
Exactly. So yes, absolutely feel free to edit this. This should serve you as a very helpful guide in how to start creating that content.
Yeah, just make a copy for yourself here. And then from there you can, basically just like edit, delete as you go, and, be able to use this to keep track of all your content and be able to do it in a very organized fashion.
Exactly. And again, this will really help you clarify what that brand story really is, and, how your life relates to the journey of your ideal avatar, because in some way your life does intersect, right? It's kind of like a Venn diagram. On one circle it's you, and the other circle is them, and then wherever those circles overlap in the middle, those are the epiphany bridge stories that you want to be telling, right? Because everything has to be relevant to them.
Yeah.
Okay. So I really hope that those sheets and that spreadsheet are really helpful for your content and for, getting into storytelling and really using that in an effective way. And last but not least, our quotes. So storytelling is the most powerful way to put ideas into the world today. And that's by Robert McKee. It is absolutely true. As we said, storytelling is an ancient art form, and it is not going anywhere. It will be around forever because it is effective. It's what catches people's hearts and minds, and they're memorable.
Yeah.
Right? We can say a lot with very simple things and very few words. Right. So mastering our storytelling is incredibly, incredibly important.
Yeah. And here's a proof. What's number 4 of the steps in the hero's journey? Probably don't remember. But if I tell you what was the story of that boy in the village, what did he do?
He came from a family of corn farmers.
You got it. Exactly.
And then he made a lot of money, and he helped his village.
Exactly. There you go. That's the power of stories. A lot of the facts sometimes and numbers, sometimes it's hard to remember when you like more over and over. But a story, if I ask you about the soils or about Johnny, that he was having problem with his, girl or whatever, like that's it. You remember them.
Exactly.
Love it.
Exactly. So
alrighty.
We really hope that you found that very insightful.
Yeah. And with this, you can become a content machine, essentially.
Yes. And that you really enjoy making your content. So I think, content can seem kind of intimidating, but when it's through, using your own failures and successes and all these different milestones in your life, and you're using it to help someone else, that's a wonderful thing. It actually begins to be really fun reminiscing on these memories, knowing that they can be used in a very relevant way to someone else, right? For the best possible type of persuasion.
For sure.
Right.
And use these frameworks. All of these are frameworks. Of course, don't feel like, completely restricted by them either. Of course, experiment, talk, find your own voice, find your own stories as you go, and obviously measure with your actual audience, with your actual, comment and feedback from your audience, what resonates and what doesn't. But these frameworks will literally be lifesavers for you. So yeah, we encourage you to reach out to us, any Q&A, to hit us up on Slack, to catch any of these, lessons and lives that we're doing here, and that you let us know if you have any questions. If you're stuck anywhere, we're obviously here to help, and we want you to succeed. But of course, it takes some hard work, and it takes some time out of your week, out of your day, out of your, daily schedule to dive into this and be able to create pieces of content that become assets for time and time to come. Duplicates of yourself that will be doing all the selling and influencing for you even when you're sleeping.
Exactly. So we hope that you have a great time kind of like rediscovering your own stories.
Yes.
Clarifying those. And again, if you have any questions, please feel encouraged to reach out throughout the week.
Yeah.
We're more than happy to help. So we hope you have a great rest of your week, guys. We will talk to you soon.
We'll talk to you soon, guys. Take care.